Today's game is a more unknown game. It's called Driftland: The Magic Revival. It's available on Steam. And on to our disclaimer here. As we always do, the game was played on normal difficulty. It was purchased some time ago, so any purchase price is considered a sunk cost and didn't necessarily figure into our analysis. Only the single player content that any player could interact with feasibly will be evaluated in the game. No additional mods, no custom maps were used during the evaluation. Which brings us on to immersion. The primary method the game uses to immerse players in its world is the world itself. It's not too unfamiliar to other players of real-time strategy games or players familiar with the fantasy genre in general. And player agency is somewhat limited, mostly to which of the 4 species in the campaign, 5 in the skirmish and other modes that the players choose to play with, which does present some differences, but largely these units and heroes are the same. It really just boils down to which names they're used with, which names they have, and what their player models look like. So it is somewhat limited there. Now, the game does present something of a challenge. It is very limited to mostly which order that islands are going to be acquired, to be more specific, which lands are going to be acquired, what order they're going to be acquired, and what the optimal use of that land is, because all of these lands have certain limits assigned to them. So there is that element of strategy and tactics to it. Now, the game does present something of a story, but the story is really a light presence in the game. It's there for players that are interested in engaging with it, but players that are not interested in it won't necessarily be too bothered by it. There are some statistics to focus on, as we can see from the in the image on the left, but this is mostly restricted to the allocation of workers to which professions that they're going to have. The options that are available are either gathering or collecting gold, that sort of thing. Very limited, very bare bones there, but it is there for players that are interested in doing it. Now, that brings us on to our final category, that is lasting appeal. Now, this is where the game really does seem to shine, or a lot of effort does seem to have been spent. Now, the game provides players with multiple options to engage with. There are such things as a map editor, multiplayer, skirmish modes, and even a sort of a house rules mode. There's direct peer-to-peer mode. There's almost anything that players could conceivably be interested in engaging with. It's available to them. Although it will be potentially seemingly more limited to experienced players. But that's where things like the mod support does come into play, and overall it does get a very good score of 11 out of 15 for this, mostly because of the multiple options to engage with it. If it did have something like more DLC, more species, that would be a lot better, and it would possibly even raise to the level of a 15 out of 15. So what's our final analysis of this software? Overall, we do find that it scores an 8.16 out of 15, which is above average, not by much. And mostly that score is driven by the multitude of modes that the game offers, and the lack of any sort of steep learning curve. It isn't necessarily hurt by anything else, but it's not helped by anything else really either. It is what it says on the tin. It's slightly above average, not by very much. Players familiar with fantasy genre, fantasy RTSs should be able to enjoy this. Like we say, it is as much RTS as players can handle at the moment. And that's all we've got for today. Thanks very much, and goodbye.